Mate, asked for that coffee about 20 minutes ago.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sort it out.
Hey everybody, Matt McCarthy here for Rugby Wrap-Up, brought to you by the Friends of the British Council. We're at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34, West 35th Street in Manhattan, the Renaissance Hotel, and we have upped the bar again, this time with Mr. Alexander Richard Corbisiero. Aside from having arguably the most dramatic and coolest name in rugby, we welcome you to this set.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with everyone watching as well.
Thank you, sir. Just a brief history for folks at home that might not recognize this gentleman. He was a dynamic player, loose head prop, playing with England, 20 caps, 19?
19, I counted them on the way in.
Sure?
Yeah, positive. Right. Barbarians games don't count, so that could be the 20th. England Barbarians is not a cap. So that could be where the number 20 is coming from.
All right, we're going to have to fire our intern, Steve Malloy, for giving us the wrong information on that.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah. Coffee, now.
On it.
19 caps, but you also played professionally for London Irish
yes.
and then with Northampton.
Yes.
Right? And you basically gotten banged up to the point where you retired early.
Did 10 years as a professional.
And not on the wing.
And not on the wing. and yeah, I had about 3-year period at the end where it was long-term injury, come back for a bit, long-term injury, come back for a bit. And it kind of just took the love away from it a bit, and it stopped me probably playing at my best as well. And the combination of those two, the frustration of being injured and also maybe not being able to play your best, kind of drove me to make the decision that, you know, maybe this isn't for me anymore. Initially, it was probably a plan to take some time off and reassess. But as I've had time away from rugby, I've now found work over here with NBC Sports covering it, and it's just worked into a very good sort of transition to something close
It's not a bad
rugby.
life, is it?
No, I'm very happy,
Yeah.
and I miss it at times, but physically I feel still in a good place. I'm just turned 29 last week. I physically feel like I could probably play a little bit more, but I don't think I'd play at my best. And I don't think
Rugby Club. We got New York Rugby Club.
Too much more to achieve. Yeah. I'm happy with what I've done, and I'm happy that I've got a good role with NBC and it's going in the right direction.
All right, that's fantastic. But I want to go over some of your history here because
100%.
It's an American story, really, ladies and gentlemen. Goddamn American story. Your great grandfather,
yes,
was Ricardo
Corbisiero. He immigrated to the United States, I believe, when he was 16 years old in 1923. And in 1951, he opened up Ricardo's by the Bridge in Astoria, Queens. And it is now primarily catering and parties and weddings, but it's still run and owned to this day by my two uncles.
Wow.
And in Astoria, Queens. And it's there. And it's very, very impressive, the legacy that he actually started it. It's phenomenal.
And they Americanized the name from Ricardo to Richard.
Yes. So my grandfather is Richard Jr. My father is Richard III. I was supposed to be the fourth. My mum objected. And
she didn't like Shakespeare, right?
No, yeah. Exactly. So yeah. I'm Alexander Richard Corbisiero.
And it's the English mum.
English mum.
That is the common denominator for you to be able to, if you had wanted to, play rugby for either England, USA, Italy, and Ireland.
Yes.
Because Corbisiero. Right?
Exactly, exactly. Collins is my mum's maiden name. So, you know, you can't get too much more
Michael
Irish.
Collins.
Exactly.
Sure.
And so, yeah, for me, I had my mum, English born to two parents from Dublin. Her and my dad met in the 80s when my dad was working in London. Got engaged, came back to New York, got married. My dad's obviously Italian-American. And then they eventually had me and my sister over here and then moved back to London and then been based there for about 24 years now.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I had a number of options playing rugby. And I always, you know, I was fortunate enough to be approached by all of them at some point or the other, the USA, Ireland, Italy, and I was very close.
And we let you go!
Very close. At one point, of maybe not sure if it was going to happen with England or not, and thinking maybe I need to look elsewhere. But I stayed with the course, and I just grew up playing rugby in England. And I remember being a kid and looking up at that 2003 team, and when they achieved all that, it was for me, if I could play for England, I wanted to play for England.
You're killing me.
I'm sorry, mate.
But did anything... Okay, so from the American side here, I look at it from a financials...
It also pays a lot more to play for England than anyone else in the world.
28 grand? Do you get something for a cap?
I think now, if they play at Twickenham and they win, I think it's something like £27,000 or something is what they get a game now. So it wasn't when I played, but that's what it is now.
So a guy like Todd Clever or a guy like Chris Wiles who have like 1,000 caps each, that's not even going to add up to one cap.
No, probably.
Because it's a per diem of like...
you know better than me, but yeah, the finances it's very lucrative to play for England, and that's why you see a lot of people come over from other countries to declare themselves for England to want to play. It's a as much as it's international and you want to pride in your country, it's also your job, and it's a tough one to say someone, we can't pick you, but you qualify. You know, it's a life-changing amount of money. Right.
I know that out there, Mike McDonald and Eric Fry are probably cursing you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Everyone hates the English anyway, so we always said that. When we played rugby, everyone hated us.
You qualify across the board as a lot of different things. You are not in a nutshell.
No, definitely.
Right? Or a box.
I'm a hybrid.
Like yeah. All right, so the English mom, your mom and dad met where?
They met in London.
And then they moved back here.
They moved back here.
Had you.
Had me.
5 or 6 years living here?
5 years, well, 4 and almost 5, so almost 4 and a bit. Yeah, lived here and then moved back to England.
But then you'd spend summers here.
Yeah, so I would spend, from age about 6, I would spend 2 months minimum with my grandparents out in Douglaston, Queens, and I would do either a sailing camp or swimming or something. And it just, I have so much family over here, and my dad didn't want us to not experience it, and so I have strong ties here, and it feels like a second home. All
right, speaking of ties, this tie is dedicated to Astoria, to you, Italy, and to the New York Mets. So
Mets,
while all Astoria is watching, all of Queens is watching the show right now, Mets or Yankees?
Mets.
On that note, let's take a quick break with Alexander the Great, Corbisiero. Matt McCarthy on Rugby Wrap-Up. We'll be right back.
If you're just joining us, this is a big match and a big moment as Clijsters toes the line.
You know, John, Anderson has really been struggling out there today. Huge mistake as Clijsters clinches another title. Don't let your nutrition get in the way. USANA, the official multivitamin of the WTA.
All right, everybody, how's it going? We sip, we peel, and we slide? Nah, like this. We sip, we peel, we win.
I think I'm getting this.
Grab a large or extra large freshly ground, freshly brewed hot coffee for your chance to win great prizes like free coffee for a year. Get your celebration ready. Dunkin' Donuts. This is coffee. This is winning.
The world's top professional rugby competition is bringing excitement to Philadelphia this September with English Premiership Rugby's American Series. Come experience current European champions Saracens taking on Newcastle Falcons at Talon Energy Stadium on September 16. Tickets are on sale now for the inaugural match of English Premiership Rugby's American Series at www.spectratix.com.
Hey everybody, Matt McCarthy and Alex Corbisiero back at Rugby Wrap-Up at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 on West 35th Street in New York City. Alex, we left you with the cliffhanger that you answered. Well, it wasn't a cliffhanger. You answered it definitively and in the only right question. He is a New York Mets fan, folks.
Mets and the Jets, baby.
Mets and Jets. Oh.
It's a tough cross to bear, but you got to hang in there.
All right. Well, you've been a winner, so it cancels out. If you're just a Mets and a Jets fan and you didn't play for England, that's a different story.
I know.
All right. So, speaking of your rugby career, your Lions career,
yes.
Right? 2013?
Yep.
Right?
Series winner.
Any truth to the rumors that you had paid off members of the now in limbo Western Force to take out Cian Healy prior to that.
Yeah, I had snipers in the building. Cian, Gethin's calf. Yeah. They were coming for him one way or the other.
Then you go in and you score the first
opening try and the third test. So
in the decisive test.
Yeah, just in within the 2-minute mark, I think it was. We started with a bang, got down there, got the free kick at the scrum, played quick, few phases, and managed to be right place, right time. Got the try, and that just kind of got things rolling. A lot of people remember that. Australia came back into that game up until half-time. It was quite close, and then we really put our foot down in the second half and blew them away. For me, everyone always remembers the try. I personally think that third test is probably the most complete performance I ever put together on a rugby field. I think my set piece was world-class. We'd struggled in the second. I didn't play the second test, but we struggled in the second test with Ben Alexander at scrum time. He put us under huge amounts of pressure, got a load of penalties that won them that second test. And Gatlin said to me, back in the squad after missing it with a calf injury, he said, I want you to get that. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, the P word.
Hey, ho, hey.
For me, mate. And so I went, all right, and we went out there and
who was he referring to exactly?
Ben Alexander. So basically, within 30 minutes, or 20 minutes, Ben Alexander was yellow carded for multiple infringements, and then he didn't come back on, which in international rugby is a big sign of respect. I think the fact that they knew that he was outmatched that day, and then we carried on that dominance. But I thought my carrying, my try, my work rate, everything was on point. It was like the perfect performance for me, and probably the pinnacle of what I was able to do in rugby. And
is that your favorite memory in rugby?
Yeah, I think that was my favorite moment. And also beating the All Blacks at Twickenham was pretty special.
Yeah,
those are two highlights I think I sit on. And then the Premiership winning as well is probably the third, but probably staggers down like that.
Yeah, I think there's a short list of about 3 loosehead props that have beaten the All Blacks.
Yeah,
right?
Well, and I always say this. I was in New Zealand in the summer working for the Lions tour in New Zealand, and played New Zealand once, beat them once.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Justin Marshall went to me, mate,
just drop the mic, walk off the set.
He was like, mate, can you pick my lottery numbers for you this weekend? Because you must be the luckiest man alive.
No kidding. Oh my God.
And I said that's another stat I live by. Undefeated against the All Blacks.
Wow. Will you play again?
Most likely not. There's 1 or 2 opportunities that would possibly bring me out to play. The only thing that annoys me about finishing rugby is I didn't finish walking off the field. I was injured, and then I decided to stop, and I didn't have that last game where I said goodbye and I sort of put it to rest. So feeling physically fit right now, part of me thinks about possibly love in an ideal dream scenario to play a Barbarians game or something as a final game, or some sort of game like that where I could just walk off. But it'd take a lot. You'd have to put the training in, you'd have to put the time in, and make sure you're fit and do yourself justice. So it's a big decision. But
it's a yes.
It's something that's on my mind. It's definitely not a no. Yes. Okay. It's definitely not a no.
Well, you could play with the New York Rugby Club, our club here in the United States. Yeah, it's the oldest club in the United States.
Get some.
Respect your letters.
Yeah.
And you don't have to come to training. We'll just put you in.
I can live with that.
All right.
I can live with that.
You pick your spots. Okay. Any regrets about your time with Northampton in relation to your career because of the injury? There's not really anything you can do differently if you're injured.
There's a few regrets. Obviously, it was frustrating for me to not be able to play for them as much as I wanted. The fan base was fantastic. It's a very special club that you are the center
Franklin
of
Gardens.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When we're on form and the fans are behind you, it's a very, very impressive place to play. It's 15,000, 17,000 people, but it sounds like 50,000 people when they get behind you and get going, especially big games. Yeah. And for me, I was privileged to win there, to play with some great teams, to actually finally get a Premiership title is why I went there. But at the same time, only playing 24 games or so over 3 years for them, or whatever it was, 2.5 seasons, was very, very frustrating. And regrets for me are probably the fact that when I first got there, I picked up an injury, and I felt pressure because I'd just come there. I was on a good contract to play, where I think if I'd been at London Irish, I would have pulled back and said, I need to rest this and get it right.
Yeah, sure.
Instead, I pushed forward, and then the injury got a lot worse, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for my decline and then eventual finish. And that's the only thing that haunts me a little bit, is if I'd pulled back and let it rest, or maybe got it scanned and addressed the issue then instead of playing another 8-10 games.
So what was it, back?
Knee. So the worst things for me were my knees.
Because you had a back issue.
I had a back issue with the World Cup 2015. That was sciatica, but that was due more to the fact that I had issues with my knees. So there was overcompensating going. So then that was causing issues in my back. But for me, the big thing that was finishing me off was definitely the knees.
Who was the hardest player you played against head to head?
When I was very young, coming into the Premiership, I'd say Carl Heyman. He was the sort of, Graham Rounds used to call him like the sort of the Shaolin master, like because at the time he just mastered that flat back shape, so consistent, so long and tall with the old rules with the engage. He was phenomenal, and a big learning curve for me. I got pasted by him a couple times, but it made me a much better scrummager and player. Then next was probably, for me, Adam Jones was the biggest test at the time when he was at his best, and I learnt the most from the 2 times I got done by him.
You gonna grow your hair long?
Nah, I had it long when I was younger.
I would be doing all kinds.
But now I'm in suit, all looking fresh.
Oh, you're looking good.
Beard, fresh, everything. That's the.
And on that note, producer's telling us we're out of time, Alex, but it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. Fan of the show, and hopefully come back on again.
There you go, folks. We're getting more credibility by the day, especially with the likes of this man. On behalf of Mr. Alexander, Richard, Corbisiero, Matt McCarthy for Rugby Wrap-Up at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34, here on 35th Street in New York City, signing off.